Welcome to Dead Harvey, where we are going to be talking about what's going on in indie horror, stuff we're watching, stuff in the news. And of course, we want to talk about new films and filmmakers and give people information they might need to get new films out there and to get more people watching those films. So we've got our new format here that we're going to roll with, where we talk about the news and then what we watched this week and what we're going to watch next week. So we're going to start with the news, and this one's actually concentrating on a bunch of projects that are out there. Last week we were talking a lot about some of the platform changes and stuff and about streaming, but there's a lot of interesting news came out last week that talks about different films and projects we like. Now, this one's not necessarily indie, but I think this first bit of news affects indie horror.
Mhm.
And it is that there's a Chinese superstar actor, Wu Jing, has joined Jason Statham in Warner Brothers' Meg 2. Now, why I think this is exciting is there's two reasons. One, we're going to get a Meg 2. Two,
We're gonna get another shark movie.
we're getting, well, basically it's all
Yeah.
wrapped up in one.
Mhm.
Shark horror is not dead, because shark horror is keeping indie horror alive. If you go on Tubi, Shudder, there's so much shark horror, it's not even funny. So if the big boys like Warner Brothers think shark horror is still alive, shark horror is still alive.
Yeah, this is like high budget shark horror. This is proof of shark horror being still alive right now because tons and tons of indie, micro, low budget shark horror, but this is like super high budget shark horror.
If Warner Brothers is getting behind this, that also means that like there is just people are buying, like Shudder, Tubi are taking shark horror, and it still has legs. And I'm not done with it. It's kind of like, remember when zombie movies kept cranking out, and eventually we're like, is The Walking Dead going to kill zombie movies? And kind of
Right, yeah.
zombie movies have trickled down, but I still think shark horror has legs. We're
Yeah.
still, that's what that to me this news reads, expect more indie crap shark horror.
Yeah. Well, and the occasional high budget shark horror too. And great to see that Ben Wheatley is directing the Meg too.
Yeah. And
of
Ben
course-
Wheatley,
yeah.
Ben Wheatley's awesome. I remember when he first came on with Kill List and followed along with like, if you, by the way, yeah, Ben Wheatley watches early stuff. He comes from a fully indie horror background. He's done some awesome stuff originally, and to get to something as prestigious as Meg 2 just shows that there's a path for everybody.
Yeah. Although I think it's probably hard to make a better movie than Kill List, but this one will be a great popcorn entertainment movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. No, this is just good news, because I know it's
Yeah.
a Warner Brothers and big news, but like, yeah, Ben Wheatley has an indie horror background. Awesome to see him getting paid. And two, this is awesome for the indie horror shark horror world. Like,
Yeah, definitely. Funny, like I saw like on Tubi or something, I think it was, and they had like they broke down all the different like shark horror movies into different sorts of like little shark horror genres. They're like cannibal sharks, or like like they're like sharks with like 10 rows of fangs. They had like all these. There was like 10 or 12 of them. I'm like, damn.
the best part about it is that there's so much indie shark horror now,
Yeah.
that there's indie shark horror subgenres.
Yeah, exactly. That was awesome.
So next piece of news that I saw last week, and it's pretty interesting, I find anyhow. So Foo Fighters frontman Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters produced an indie horror comedy called Studio 666.
Yeah.
And here's the cool thing about it. So this one actually is a legit indie horror. So the Foo Fighters rented a mansion to record their latest album and joked around about it being the set of a horror movie, and thought, fuck it, let's turn it into a movie. Let's do it. So they hired, all I know is I can't remember his name, but he basically did Slayer videos and did that last, that 20-minute Slayer kind of movie thing that they did a while ago. And they hired him to come on and do it. So it's a bunch of just real crazy indie horror guys. They re-rented the mansion and shot this indie horror. Now, what's cool about it is no one streaming has picked it up yet. And I think that's by design. They're getting a theatrical release with it. And it's an indie movie that just Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl was like, fuck it, let's make a movie. And it looks pretty damn awesome if you've seen the trailer.
I think it looks great. And it sort of reminds the marketing for it reminds me of the Pick of Destiny when that came out. Remember the Jack Black movie, Pick of Destiny? I almost saw it at the theaters, but this is kind of like one thing like we were talking about streaming the other day. Since streaming is more prevalent now and the theaters are just trying to stay alive, like especially AMC, they cut the show times down. So usually I would go see movies at like 11 in the morning, then like you got the rest of your day to do whatever. But our show times don't start until like, most of them aren't until like at least 5. And so, by that time I'm like too lazy to go. Except for the Batman. I'll be seeing that next week. But this one, I almost saw that, but I was like, and I should be supporting theaters more. So I feel kind of bad
well,
about it.
it's
It looks very cool.
and it's an indie horror getting a theatrical release because I mean, obviously they have money, so they didn't have to. Then they got a bunch of people to back it right off the bat. Like if Dave Grohl says, "Hey, I got an idea for a horror movie," someone's going to fund it. But yeah, no, I think it's pretty cool. Can't wait to look for it. And a bunch of people were like, "Hey, where can I watch it?" And they're like, "Can't. Go see it in the theaters, and then you'll wait to find out."
Something I heard about just. I'm sorry to cut you. Something I heard about just recently, but it's right here with the streaming. They're charging more for Batman than any other movie. And it looks like this is going to be something that's going to start happening. These higher budget movies, they're going to charge like $1 or $2 more, but they're not going to put in like the multi-level mark charging for it. So like if it's a movie, like a low budget indie movie, they're going to charge the same amount. It's like a high budget blockbuster, but they're going to charge even more now for the high budget blockbusters. At least they're starting this with Batman, but I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
That's crazy. That's just because they need to make money back. Like I noticed last time I went and went to like a kids movie, like you're in for $100 to take a family to a theater now. Like I remember when we were in school, you're like, oh, it's $250 Tuesdays. Like you're in for nothing. So it's a strange way, but it's cool to see an indie movie actually get that release.
I think that's fantastic. I didn't know that that's cool. Like the whole story about it too. It's great.
Yeah. So anyhow, and the last piece of news I found that I thought was worth talking about. Again, it's something with a bit more budget, but I think it has an interesting story to it. So Anthony Mackie has landed at Peacock, and they are adapting the Twisted Metal video game into a show. And what I find kind of cool about it is A, it was kind of a cool video game back in the day, but two, it just goes to show what they're doing with kind of cool old IP. And it's when we've talked about it before. It's like sometimes just having existing IP is cool, but that's why we like comic books, video games, whatever it might be, that if you as a filmmaker can think about other just other IP has value. And it's just, to me, it's like, A, that was a cool video game, but B, it goes to show that they're adapting just about anything, and having something that exists before, is good. But it's cool to see they're just coming out with anything that has an existing name. They're gonna adapt. But Twisted Metal is a pretty cool idea.
I remember playing. I love that video game. It was like PlayStation 2, I think it was, and it had like, wasn't like the ice cream truck the same one that had like the clown head on top of it? It was always what they put on the cover for it. Like the crazy, like sort of reminded me of like the goblin face on the front of the semi and Maximum Overdrive, like that kind of that was a fun game. That was really cool.
And I have no idea how they're going to adapt it into a TV series, but that's it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see that.
I'm down for that for sure.
So there you go. Like other IP, you don't have to do original stuff, because apparently if it's going to get made, it can't be original. It has to come from somewhere. So get out in front of it and go turn it into a comic book. Okay, now on to